Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name is Susie, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but the women's meeting is my favorite thing for the conference. So I'm just thrilled to be here and to see all of you all, and I hope you're having a great time. And we have 3 fabulous speakers today. Also, FYI, oh, you know what? We should start with the Serenity Prayer. Let me stop making announcements and let's start with the Serenity Prayer, shall we? Okay. God or whomever, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So we're going to get started in 1 second. Each person's going to share for about 20 minutes. And FYI, we have this meeting being taped. So if you like what you hear, you are more than welcome to go upstairs to the 4th floor and get a CD of it later. Okay? So, speaker number 1, Nora P. from San Francisco.
Hi, I'm Nora, alcoholic. Ooh, let me just take a breath in. You all look so beautiful out there, and I feel so grateful to be up here standing today. Susie, thank you so much for asking me. You know, Susie approached me at a Living Sober event and came up to me and asked me, and of course my immediate reaction was fear. And I kind of took a breath and said, can I get back to you? Of course, you know, I was going to do it, but that's where I go. You know, I go fear. And but as much as I want to say it's not about me, you know, I tend to make it about me. But I don't speak for AA. You know, I'm just going to tell you my story. You know, what it was like for me today. And first, I just want to start by saying this past 2 or 3 years, I more than ever, I've been really grateful to be in AA because it has really pushed me in another level of growth of things that have gone on in my life. First, I just want to say that my sobriety date is July 31st, 2004. And there was a question whether or not I got sober the first or second week, and somewhere in there, if that gives you any indication of where I was. My first year was really, really a fog. And so my sponsor and I agreed that let's just say it was July 31st, and I'm okay with that. And so hopefully this year, through the grace of God, I will hit 8 years of sobriety. So anyway, a little bit of what I was saying, these last 2 or 3 years have been very challenging in many ways. One, I was in a fire, and that was a real spiritual awakening that kind of put me in another place because all of my life, and, you know, we speak of this, that, you know, it was all about those outside things, material things. And, you know, suddenly I was displaced in a hotel and didn't have much. And I knew what to do in this program. You know, they say, you know, we hear in the program, do the next right thing. And, it is often said we hear when we can hear and we see when we can see. And for some reason, I heard doing the next right thing more clearly than I ever did in that moment. And it meant for me to pick up new sponsees, work my program even stronger, in spite of being at a hotel, and getting closer to my higher power. I remember calling my sponsor and saying, I feel this sense of like peace. I couldn't grasp why it was so peaceful when I had all these things that I had lost. And once again, as we know, it was grace. I mean, it was really God really working in my life. And that was one thing. And then I had major surgery and had to deal with some very powerful meds during that. And meds, barbiturates is a very is a part of my story, and I was able to get through that. And I say these things because I think it's really important for those, well, not only new, but those of us that are sober in the long term, is that we can go through adversity in this program and we don't have to pick up. And the other thing was I had that major surgery, and then the last 2 years and recently my folks have both passed on. And it really I've never been in that much pain in my entire life, particularly of losing my mom, and I didn't have to pick up. I think it's really important to say that I didn't have to pick up. Again, I immersed myself into this program. And the beauty of that is, and I won't go on too much about that, but because I want to, give you a little bit of the stats of my alcoholism and what brought me here. But the beauty of all that was, I was able to show up for both my folks. I remember there was a time in my life as a teen that my parents gave me a graduation party and I couldn't even fucking show up for that. And, to be at, and that's the truth, I was never, family reunion pictures, never in them, I wasn't present, I was never available, drugs and alcohol was where I went, like my entire life, it wasn't a day that I was sober, and I was able to be there for both of them, 100%. And my mom said to me, months before she was really declining, she said, Nora, you are not the person you used to be. And I went to my sponsor and I said that to her. And she said, no, Nora, you're the person God intended for you to be. I never got that, I always thought, I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worthy to be happy, joyous, and free. And, I also planned the whole, wake and funeral with my sister, who's an alcoholic. And I was able to be at peace with her and plan it and to be present. And I remember speaking at my mom's memorial, and all my family came up to me and friends of the family and said, how did you learn to speak like that? I think we know where, right? And among other things, AA taught me that. I grew up in this program, it taught me to suit up, show up, be honest, and speak the truth. And so with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story, okay? So I grew up in the East Coast, as you can tell from my accent, Central Massachusetts, Italian family. Both my folks were first generation from Italy. And I realize today, and especially today with them not being here and able to really understand this when I got in sobriety, is they really did the best they can. I heard that many times in my life. I was too angry to digest that and to understand that. But they did the best that they could. You know, they came here, and the tools that they learned were to provide shelter, food, education, you know, lots of love in my family. I grew up in an Italian family, a neighborhood sort of like North Beach. Everybody's mom was everybody's mom. It was great, you know. And there was alcohol in my family. My dad was an alcoholic. He was also a rageaholic, which I am as well. He was a hard blue-collar worker that drank on the weekends, starting on Friday. And it's what a lot of the neighborhood guys did, dads did. And I didn't see that as being a problem. You know, he worked hard. He deserved to drink. My mom was classic codependent. Sister is currently drinking and is an alcoholic. I never knew that. And what I've learned was my dad was what you call a binge drinker, and that's what I learned that I am. And growing up, I never felt, you know, and you hear this a lot in the rooms, you know, I never felt a part of. I always felt that sort of emptiness and always wanted more attention, and I would do things to get that attention. And, you know, both my folks were just trying to make a living. You know, I remember just wanting my mom just more emotionally available and present. And she could to an extent, but, you know, she used to work evenings. You know, my dad was Mr. Mom, and he, my mom would prep the food and before she went to work, and he took over from there, and I got home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and wanted more attention but didn't get it. So what I understand today is with that emptiness, it was like all my life I've tried to fill it with everything, you know, whether it be with food, whether it be with relationships, whether it be anything, and everything in excess. And this is just my story. I came in another 12-step rooms. And I have many, you know, cross addictions. But I'm very grateful for Bill and Bob to have, were the founders of AA, because without them, I wouldn't have these other 12-step groups to deal with my other issues. And I won't go into those issues because this is AA. But what I understand today is having that uncomfortableness, trying to fill it with voids. You know, first it was cigarettes as a child. First it was acting out. And my understanding is that we have this pre-exposed issue of alcoholism, which I feel, and others may agree, and this is just my opinion, I was born an alcoholic. Bottom line. Then I had to deal with feeling uncomfortable, not feeling a part of, and my way of dealing with that, like I said, was to act out. And for the longest time, I didn't have a lot of consequences out there, and I was a binge drinker. Right? I kept a job. I kept my outsides. I always looked good. You know, my outsides always had to look really good. You know, I hung out with the cool people. I hung around with the fashionable people. You know, it wasn't cool to be in sports. It was like, you know, and part of my story is. You know, I went with the times. 80s, it was about cocaine. 70s, it was about Quaaludes and drinking. You know, I was like a garbage disposal, really. Anything to get out of myself. And my first experience was I grew up, and I said, in this Italian neighborhood, and across the street was an Italian club. And it was a men's club, and they would play bocce, which, if some of you don't know what that is, it's an Italian sort of bowling kind of game. And this is not a normal thing to do as a child. I was like 12 years old, and there was a bar down there, and I was always the leader, you know. What do they say? We're like, you know, we're people with ego that have this inferior. I was really fearful inside, but I thought I was the shit. You know, I was the leader in our neighborhood, and I decided that it would be a great idea to steal some alcohol out of this bar across the street in this club. And I got everybody together, and we went to this club in the back, and we stole the nearest thing to the window of inside the bar. We broke the window, and we stole the case of blackberry brandy. Not a good choice, because we didn't have a choice. It really sucked. But the interesting thing about that is we had that the whole winter long, like just stuck in all the snow. I was the first to try it, of course. Thought I was cool, drank the whole thing, you know. But I can tell you, and I know you've heard this before, I felt this instant, like, feeling of peace. You know, that kind of peace that you get in the rooms, but with alcohol for the very first time. And so anyway, a little fast forward, because I got the 5-minute, was for years I did everything in access. You know, that was my first experience of that. And then I tried pot for the first time at 16 and 14 actually, and I became a daily pot smoker. You know, my life goal was I was going to be 80 years old on my front porch, still smoking weed. You know, why do people want to ever quit this stuff? You know, people would say if you don't get a buzz anymore, it's time to quit. So I like to think God did for me what I can't do for myself. It just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do anymore. But anyway, moving forward with that is, I also, part of my addiction is geographic with jobs. You know, it wasn't the right people. It wasn't the right place. You know, I did geographics with living in different cities. I did geographics with girlfriends. Oh, it must be girls. Maybe I'll do boys. You know, it was like, you know, everything to sort of get out of myself. And I never once had any inclination that I was an alcoholic. And my bottom was, I had done my last geographic, which was in San Francisco, and I was living with some friends, and they were letting me stay with them for 6 months. And I was also a real bullshit artist. You know, I wore many masks. I never let anybody really let them know who I really was. And I would lie so much that I would believe my own lies. I was coming to San Francisco to be an interior designer. And 6 months went by, and my roommate said, the people I was staying with was like, what gives, Nora? You know, it's 6 months, you've done nothing but go out and party, and you're not looking for a job. And it was the first time in my life that someone, because people always picked the pieces up for me, you know. I had girlfriends that would take care of me, or my parents would take care of me, you know. I was notorious for drinking and driving. I did that quite a bit. And it was the first time they said to me, what gives? You know, if you don't have a job in such a certain amount of time, then we're going to have to kick you out. So moving forward with that, I found myself sitting in the living room, and it was the first time in my life I thought to myself, where am I going in my life? To also say, I never pinpointed I had alcoholism. So what I did was I went into the yellow pages and thought, I need a therapist. First therapist was my first, I like to call my first angel. She was in AA. I went to her and bitched about my life, how I got dealt a bad deck of cards. My parents weren't available for me when I was younger. They don't agree with my sexuality. I went on and on and on, and she suggested to go to Codependence Anonymous, which is my first program. I did 10 years in that program. I learned a lot about relationships. But because I didn't think I was an alcoholic, I was still using. How much clarity can you get? You know, I was still drinking, doing a fourth step. So life went on, and I thought things were great, and I'm working a program, and I'm spiritual, and I'm this, and I'm that. And from there, I went into another 12-step group. I thought it was, I also have a food addiction, and I went into that and got lots of blessings in there. But again, I was still using alcohol. No clue that I was an alcohol. I didn't know I had untreated alcoholism. So what happened was I hit a bottom. And the bottom was I went to a work function, and I said, I'm going to have one drink before I go to this function, because I always felt uncomfortable in any sort of situation where there was, in a function, because I never felt, I always had that unease, like I said, even from the get-go when I was younger. And I like to think that AA found me, because what had happened was, I think it was a combination of lost lots of weight from that program and have you. And what happened was, I hit my bottom. I hit and finally I said to myself, maybe I am an alcoholic. And what happened was I woke up the morning of this situation, and I'll wrap up, is what happened was I woke up and I said, I think I'm an alcoholic. I was going to AA meetings, when I couldn't go to other meetings. I figured it's 12-step groups. I was going to support friends or what have you. And I got on the phone. With the woman on central office, who was my second angel. And I said, I think I'm an alcoholic. I said, but how do you know when you hit a bottom? Now, if I tell you what my bottom was, falling down the stairs, sleeping in my own vomit, I won't go into details. That wasn't enough of a bottom for me. She said, turn the page that says you stopped in time. And I did. And she said, it doesn't matter, Nora. She said, what happened that night? What was your intent? I said, I was going to have one drink before I went to this function. She said, well, clearly you had more than one drink. And so she suggested my first meeting. I knew what to do. I got a sponsor. I did all the things that I needed to do, because I was very familiar with 12 steps, and my recovery started, and Susie keeps giving me the eye, so I know I have to wrap up, but it started my journey, and this journey of AA has been a life-changing experience in many ways, One of the things that is huge for me is, that feeling I was saying I never felt a part of? AA certainly makes me feel a part of. That uncomfortableness that I feel inside when I said I felt, I still feel that, but it's less. I'm useful today. I'm not selfish. I was the most selfish person you could ever think of. It was always about me. Me. These steps have taught me so much. And the amends process, which is step 9, has really been a gift, particularly making my amends to my folks. And what I realize is it's not about just saying sorry. It's about living it. It's about living in amends, is to live my life different today as a person of AA. To be, that person in the workplace who's one-on-one workers, and to be a good friend. I think that other big gift that has been for me is being able to be a good friend today. I couldn't be there for anybody. I could never be there for anybody. And then the last thing I promise, Susie, I just want to mention is the last thing, and I think it's really important to mention this, is the one thing I've always wanted in my life was to have a relationship with my sister. And we've been at each other's throat our entire life. And it's what my mom always wanted. She'd say, I can't understand why you can't get along. You're blood. And when I stop having expectations on her, which I learned in this program, and I could be of love and service, and I could listen to her and accept what she did for my parents as the caretaker in the East Coast, it brought us closer together. And we have a relationship today. That's a miracle. And that is a living amends to not only my mom, but for me. You know, to learn that it's not always about me. You know, it's about being there for other people. I'm going to wrap up now, and you know, I mean, I have a gift to gab, so I could be up here forever. You know, I just want to say, for those that are new, stick with it. It was always told to me, stick with the winners. And what I mean by the winners is the people that are in the middle of the boat of AA. You know, people always say to me, Nora, you know bullshit when it comes to AA, and I'm not. Because I'm not in this program because I have nothing else to do. I'm in this program because I have a disease that'll kill me. So with that, I'll end. Thank you.
Who's next? Okay. Thank you, Nora. And next we have Marya T. from San Francisco also. Thank you.
Hi, guys. I'm Marya. I'm an alcoholic. Oh, it's really great to be here. I got sober at Living Sober and some years ago, and it's always really great to be back here. And I'm just I'm always so grateful to be at a meeting. Period. Just so few alcoholics ever get to be sober, you know, and I'm so grateful to get to have this gift. And it's so funny, and just like to understand too, to really get that gratitude with it. Like that's what AA's really given me, is that gratitude for life and to get to be here. I just see so many people that come in and out of the rooms and get sober for a little while and then don't really love what we found here, you know, and then go back out or whatever. And it's just like, I can't imagine it. I just am so grateful for what we get to get in here. So I'm an alcoholic, and how we're different than people who aren't alcoholics is there's two things. We have that physical reaction to it, that phenomenon of craving. You know, I remember the very first drink I took, I was like, oh my God, more. I want more. You know, I was just like, this is the best thing I've ever found in my life, you know. And I didn't know anything about alcoholism, obviously. It was just this totally incredible reaction to it. You know, people who aren't alcoholics just like, oh, whatever, I don't know. You know, we're just like, oh, you know, and then, you know, so we just want more. Everything in us wants more. And then how we're also different is we lack a mental defense against the first drink, you know. And I always heard, you know, before I was in AA about, alcoholics are powerless over alcohol. And, you know, so I imagine them at the bar like, you know, and, and that's not, you know, how it looked for me. I lack a mental defense against the first drink. So for me, what that means is like, I would have moments of clarity. Like I'd wake up in the morning after, you know, horrific, you know, things happened the night before, horrific, you know, whatever. And that morning I'd wake up like, oh my God, I'm so clear. You know, it's the alcohol. I have to stop. I'm giving it up for a week, you know, or something like that, you know. And I'd be like so clear and so sincere, you know. And what would happen was like, you know, as the day would go on, you know, that total sincerity that I had would just start to evaporate. You know, my brain would start, okay, things were really bad last night, but that's really an exception. The police aren't going to come tonight, you know. And you know, notice that every time something bad happens, we're drinking with Sally, you know. I've got to stop drinking with Sally, you know. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right. Oh my God, what am I trying to prove, you know? And so it was always that I changed my mind. It was never that I was powerless over alcohol. I just changed my mind, and I didn't need to prove anything. I remember my big thing too was like, I work hard, I deserve a drink, and I didn't even have a job, you know. And it made such clear sense to me, you know. And it's always so funny when somebody goes out. I mean, we have really clear steps how to stay sober. You know, you go to meetings, you get a sponsor, you work the steps. As soon as you've done working the steps, you start working with sponsees. There's a very clear path to sobriety. So it's a very clear path to relapse. You stop going to meetings, you stop working with your sponsor, you stop working the steps, you stop working with sponsees. And I see people do that, and then it's so hilarious when they come to me like, I've made an informed decision and I'm going to start drinking again. It's like, of course you have. That's what our brain does, you know? And so that's the thing. It's like our thinking is so obscured with our disease, you know? It's completely obscured. I have a friend who just relapsed and he's just like, well, if it gets bad, I'll just come back in. I was like...
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Like, you have that choice, you know? Like, my sponsor says that a relapse is like having sex with a gorilla. It's over when the gorilla's done, not when you're done, you know? And, you know, if it were that easy, none of us would have horrible circumstances. None of us would lose our kids, would lose our relationships, would lose our jobs, our families, our homes, whatever. You know, we'd all just get sober when it got bad, you know. And so I really put AA first above everything. It's just, I know that I will not have clear thinking, you know, if I stop working this program. You know, that same brain will come back to me. Marya, oh my God, Coke! You haven't done Coke in so long. You know, you could do Coke like a gentleman. You know, and it would seem completely logical at the time. You know, Bill Wilson talks about that. You know, when he goes into the bar and with sudden great clarity, I just need to put my whiskey shot in a glass of milk. Duh, you know, and that's what happens to us, you know, and that's why our loved ones, you know, are like, what is wrong with you? You were crying this morning in my arms, telling me how you were never going to drink again. Like, stop harassing me, nag, you know, and, you know, so like we're just nuts, you know, everybody around us is just like, what is wrong with you? And, but it makes total sense to us, you know, and so that was, you know, that's my disease, you know, and initially I didn't care about circumstances and the consequences that were happening, you know. I very quickly, God, my first drink was at 16. I come from a totally born again Christian background. My whole family is, and so I was really afraid of upsetting anybody. So I like abstained as long as I could. I got so thirsty. I had to have a drink by 16, and you know, so first drink was at 16. First like overdose is like 18 or 19. And like, I'm homeless by the time I'm 22, I think, you know, and so it's a very fast progression, you know, and just nuts, you know. I would just be sitting, I would sit over, I had a van I lived in over on Stevenson Alley off of 14th over there, and I would just sit in that van, like feeling superior to everyone, like, look at you idiots working for the man, you know, and just like, yeah, I talked a few other people into living in vans too, and we were known as the Van Dykes, you know. And we were over there, and my friends after a month were like, "This sucks. We're getting apartments again." And you know, and it was just this progression. Like it's not you know, what I found in AA is the drinking is just a symptom of a much larger disease. You know, it's a disease that centers in my mind. It affects how I think, how I view everything, how I interact with people, how I interpret what you say or what you don't say, or the look on your face. It's all about me. You know, it's a disease of complete self-obsession, you know, and I just started just the whole disease of alcoholism. Like I can look back and see it now, but I just hated everybody, you know, and I just was like, I just felt in such self-pity all the time. I just had it so bad, and why do you have more than me just because you work and I don't, and you know, this stuff. And you know, I just started hating. Yeah, first I hated men. I thought men were the problem. Then it was like, well, straight women too. They fuck them and get all this privilege. And then I was like, well, and fags don't like dykes. And then I was like, well, then lesbians aren't that great either. Just dykes who live in vans. They're the only cool. And I would just sit in my glory in my van, you know, just like, I would light a candle and start cutting myself to be spiritual, you know. But I lit a candle, so it wasn't self-mutilation. And just sit there, you know, just like so miserable, you know. And I hit the point where the drinking stopped working. And I had been through so many things. And also, too, just for other people, like I just talk about alcoholism and alcohol. I did a ton of drugs. It doesn't matter to me. It's the same disease. I don't leave this conference and go smoke pot or anything. So for me, it's just all the same disease. My disease doesn't care what the actual substance is. But, you know, I'd gone through so many different phases with it, overdosed on so many things, nearly lost my mind so many times, you know. and started going to jail a lot and stuff like that. And the bottom line of what my bottom really was I stopped having that joy that first drink got me. That the first drink, I was like, I can do life now. Oh my God, I can do life. I was so happy. Like, it gave me just such a joy and such an excitement about life, And as long as it gave me that, I was great. I didn't care. If I got arrested, I was like, see, I'm street tough, And, I just was like, whatever it was okay. Cause I was just like still feeling that excitement. We're just innocently like, it's like an innocent thing. We're alcoholics. We don't feel good. We don't feel good with life when we're just trying to feel better, and we don't know another way, and that's what stopped working. That's what my bottom was I stopped having that joy, from the alcohol. I started having that horror, that dread, that fear, all the time, whether I was drinking or not, and just nothing was working. Nothing was making me feel good anymore, and I would just sit in that van and I had a gun and I just wanted to blow my brains out. That's what, anybody know what the gun tastes like? It's just sitting there, just like, I want to fucking die. There's nothing that makes me feel good anymore, and that's when I became teachable again. The literature talks about, we get a pain beating administered by alcohol that gives us enough humility to get in through the doors. I used to make fun of AA before I knew anything about it. People would say, hi, my name's Sally. I'd be like, hi, Sally, or whatever. Like I was in a meeting, or something. And like, and I just, I had a lot of old resentments because I grew up with the religion that I grew up with. I didn't like it. And I had a lot of resentments. So anything that said God or spirituality, I was just like, that's for the idiots, people who need a crutch. And so I was not going to do this God thing and anything. And so I came in like just beaten, where I was just like to a point where I was just, you see it like people who like survive airplane crashes and stuff. Like we have this like, when you come close to death, like you really change, and I hit that point and I was like, I just remember just this thing of like, I'll go try AA. Like I don't, the God thing was always like the God thing. I was just like, the God thing, I don't care, and I went in and it's like that first meeting, like the speaker was talking about like her disease of alcoholism and like how all the stuff, like I just knew about drinking. I didn't know, it's about how we think and behave and our personalities and everything. And she started talking about this. I was like, oh my God, I felt that way. Oh my God, just like everything she said, I was like, and I started getting it like, oh, this is what's wrong with me, And I had been to my first AA meeting when I was like 21, and there was like nothing I wanted, and I was bad at 21, and I was just like freaks, 5 minutes, okay, and okay, and so yeah. So anyways, it's just been this crazy, amazing journey, The disease of alcoholism is a disease of total self-obsession. We can't think any other way. That's why we have like crying at business meetings and stuff. We're like so opinionated, so like, it's this whole thing of like, here's what will make me happy and here's how I have to go about getting it, and of course that sets me up for disappointment all day long, because you guys never behave how you're supposed to behave. I never get the amount of money. The amount of money's never right. The amount of attention's never enough. The amount of applause is never enough. And it's like, and there's just this disappointment all day long, and we need that drink to get relief from that. And the 12 steps, what it does is it takes us and it changes us. For some reason, it unlocks something in us that nothing else does, and we start to have this transition to like a place of like a God-centeredness, a spiritual awakening. And Bill Wilson writes about it. I love he has a definition of humility. Each step takes us towards humility. Perfect humility would be a state of complete freedom from myself, freedom from all the claims that my defects of character now lay so heavily upon me. Perfect humility would be a full willingness in all times and places to find and to do the will of God. Then he goes on to say, when I meditate upon such a vision, I need not be dismayed, because I shall never attain it, nor need I soar with the presumption that one of these days its virtues shall all be mine. I only need to dwell on the vision itself, letting it grow and evermore fill my heart. And I just love that. It's like that thinking about that peace of walking through a day, not being plagued by this brain of mine, you know, she should have said that, they should have done that, you know, just like that curiosity, instead of like having to just use people for what you can give me, just like having our hands out all the time. Alcoholism is a disease of taking. I always need something from you. You know, can I show up and like actually have an interest in other people and who they are? You know, just really listen without waiting for a silence so I can say my next story. You know what I mean? Like showing up to work and like, wow, how can I really like see my job as a place to exchange love and service with people around me, instead of just how can I get my money, you know, or whatever. And just all of that, just like, you know, I wake up in the morning, it's like, okay, I think I know what's supposed to happen today, but just praying, you know, God, what do you want to have happen today? God, where do you want me to live when I'm doing the apartment hunt? You know, God, where do you want me to work? You know, God, who do you want me to fuck? You know, just trying to stay, you know, in God's plan with everything. You know, can I get on God's plan with everything? You know, the only thing that causes me discomfort is when I'm fighting right here and right now. Alcoholics, we have this allergic reaction to here and now. It's, you know, well, when I get over there, when I get a little more money, or when I get that person, or when I get to that stage, or whatever, you know, and then we get there and we're like, wait a minute, this sucks too, you know. So it's like really the steps are what help us get right here, right now, and love this, you know. In the seventh step, it says the attainment of greater humility is the foundation principle of each of AA's 12 steps. Without some degree of humility, no alcoholic can stay sober at all. Nearly all AAs have found, too, that unless they develop much more of this precious quality than may be required just for sobriety, they still haven't much chance of becoming truly happy. Without it, they cannot live to much useful purpose, or in adversity be able to summon the faith that can meet any emergency. So I love that it's talking about, you know, do we love what we found here? Do I want to start voluntarily reaching for this program instead of being beaten into it? You know, in the beginning, I was beaten into it, you know, but it's like there comes a point, you know, do I want to reach for this voluntarily? Do I get a sponsee when my sponsor tells me to, or when I've just gone through a divorce? You know what I mean? It's like starting to like not use pain, but like, I love it here. I want to start doing this. I want to reach for it. And that's what it talks about, you know, in step 6 too, the difference between the boys and the men. You know, it's if I just keep doing the bare minimum, I'm probably not gonna have long-term sobriety. I'm probably not gonna be happy. But if I start really reaching for this with everything I have, and like what he talked about in that definition of humility, you know, if I have that true desire in my heart, you know, that's where we're gonna have the long-term sobriety. That's where we're gonna have happiness. You know, that's where you know, when I have the pain, I'm going to see it as an opportunity to grow. You know, pain's my friend today. It's like showing me where I've got a little scar tissue on my heart, or where I've edged God out, you know, so I invite pain today. And in the past, it's like, pain, see more pity on me, you know, whatever. And so when we fall down, we just like use, you know, it's part of God's plan, and we can feel like it's all helping us get there. I feel like everything is it time yet? Okay. Everything is laid out exactly how it's supposed to be. And I'll just end with one last little thing from here. Step 12, true ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Marya. And our last speaker is Lisa P. from, do you live in Oakland? From Oakland.
Hey, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. I don't have anything to say. Nora told my story, and Marya told all the smart stuff. So, could we just sing? So, I'm an alcoholic in need of a haircut. And the reason that I say that is because I'm not a saint. I still have vanity. I may have kind of gotten reborn, but it didn't all get fixed. But the difference is that as an alcoholic, I'm a liar, a cheat, and a thief. I would steal from you. If you let me in your house, I would go through your shit. And I would take stuff that I needed. And I was always cheating. And I'd probably want to take your girlfriend. Maybe not forever, just for a few hours, for the night, for whatever. And I lied about everything. So having had a spiritual awakening, and I've had several in AA, I don't do that. You can give me your wallet, I won't even look in it. It's not mine, it's not my business. You can invite me over to your house, you can have me house sit, you can have me cat sit. I don't go through your stuff. Your stuff is your stuff, and I appreciate when people don't go through my stuff, and I treat them equally. I don't want your girlfriend. My own girlfriends have been problems in my life. I don't want yours. I really struggle with the blessings that I've been given. So, and for the most part, I only lie now when I'm so frightened that I'm going to lose something, or I'm not going to get something that I want. My first sponsor is here at the meeting, and the first time we sat down and talked, and this was like 13 years ago. So, my sobriety date is November 1998. And next month is 15 years in Al-Anon for me. But the first time he and I sat down to talk, one of the parting things that he said to me was, look at what you give yourself. And for many, many years, I kind of punished myself with that. It's like, how am I treating myself? What do I give myself? Am I indulging? Is this a self-esteem issue? Or am I just like, I have to have that? And so now, many, many years later, that thought is never far from me, but it's what would I like to give myself, Because in the beginning, it was like healthcare and a decent job and a nice place to sleep and clean clothes, good food. And now it's like I just came back from being away for 2.5 months, and what I really want to give myself is a regular yoga class again, because I've been doing it the alcoholic plan. Like, well, I'll just do it myself. So it doesn't happen. It does not happen in my bedroom. It should be happening, but it doesn't happen. So I have had alcoholism all my life, and it's become very clear to me that it's not really dependent upon alcohol. It works just fine without alcohol. It's always there, just running like a little engine. So I've been trying to fix this all my life. All my fucking life. I've been trying to fix this thing that Lisa is. And I, as a little kid, I tried to fix it with sugar. And I'll just tell this one story, is that I was really little, and there was a gumball machine, and if you put in 1 penny, you got 2 pieces of gum, and they were square, and they said Ford on them. And I decided that I needed more than 2 pieces of gum, and I also decided that old people were stupid. So I went to my grandmother, and I explained to her very cleverly that, oh no, you got 1 piece of gum for 2 pennies, and could I have 2 or 3 pieces of gum? So could I have more pennies? So I ended up with like 12 pieces of gum, because I'm an alcoholic, and I had to have more. I was like 6. So, as a little kid, it was sugar, it was TV. I am the only child of an alcoholic mother. I tried to fix it by getting my mom to stop drinking, but I didn't know what alcoholism was. I am the only child of a rageaholic father, so I tried to fix it by keeping the house clean. I didn't understand that the violence didn't have anything to do with the house being clean. As a teenager, I tried to fix it with drugs. My parents tried to fix it for me with rehab, then they tried to fix it for me with Canada. Canada did not work. If any of you are thinking of Canada, it didn't work. An overdose kind of worked. It just made me dry when I was 15. But then I got into college, and then I tried to fix it with booze, and then I came out in college, and I tried to fix it with relationships, and then I tried to fix it with work. I tried to fix it with money. I tried to fix it with sex. I went to therapy. I tried to fix it with therapy. I got to Al-Anon. I was getting closer. And then I got to AA. And all of a sudden, it started to get fixed. All that hurt, all that pain, all that fear, And it was not easy, and I did not have a pink cloud. It really sucked. I hated it. I went to my first meeting, and the woman told my story, and not in her actions, but in her thoughts and in her feelings. And I cried through the whole meeting. And at the end of the meeting, everybody stood up to hold hands. And as soon as we got done with the prayer, the people on either side of me just kind of like shot like 10 feet away from me. And it was like, wow, this is a lonely place. And my disease is so much about loneliness. So I went to a different meeting the next day because I kind of got it that it wasn't like yoga. It wasn't going to be an option for me. I have learned so much that there's not enough time to communicate to you, and I wish I could. A lot of times I just want to give what I have, but I understand that it really doesn't work that way. I just show up. I'm not responsible for getting anybody sober. I will never get anybody sober. I have tried all my life to put my hand between someone and that drug or that drink that they want. And I'm not it. I'm not going to do it for anybody. All I can do is say, come on over here. It's okay. And if they come, they come. And if they don't, they don't. And it's all, whatever happens with them is part of my recovery too. And it's a gift. It's taken me a long time to learn that I'm not self-centered because I'm afraid. I'm afraid because all I think about is me. Because the moment I stop thinking about me, I'm not afraid. And if it wasn't that way, there would be no solution. So service I have 8 sponsees. Service keeps me sober and it keeps me sane. I wanted to tell a funny 6-step story because there's time for that. I had occasion in the last year to work the steps again. I got into a lot of pain over a relationship that I had to end, that I didn't want to end, but I had to. And I cowboyed up, and I did the right things, and I started working the steps, and I came out with this. We got through, we did 4, 5, 6, 7, and I came out with this list, which I call my 6, 7-step list of like 10 things on this list, And I looked at the list because my sponsor says, okay, go look at this list of old ideas, see which ones have been removed, pray about the other ones every day. Just every day ask God to remove these old ideas. So 7 of them were gone. I was left with 3. One of them was, I'm not enough. So every morning for the past 7 months, I get on my knees and I say, God, please help me be relieved of this be willing to let go of this old idea that I'm not enough, right? So in the meantime, I got this kind of like crush on a woman. And what I discovered is every time she came around, I'd start holding in my stomach and like standing up straighter. And like I was trying to buy cooler clothes. Oh man. And like the irony was not lost on me at all. And I'd call my sponsor, I'd be like, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm saying I'm not enough with everything that I do. And he's just laughing. And he's like, don't you see how 6 works in your life? It's like, you get to keep doing this until you're willing to like let your stomach hang out and not care what your shirt looks like and wear whatever jeans you want. And that is kind of how 6 works in my life. I get to hang on to it until it just makes me cry or laugh, and this one was making me laugh. It's like, do I really want to be around somebody that I have to hold my stomach in? I'm older. I am much older. And I didn't, and then it became easier. And then it became just so easy to be around this person, and it all kind of like solved itself. In sobriety, I've had to do things that I don't want to do. And I've been able to do them without running away. My dad died, and I was part of his dying. I was there in the hospital with him for a week. I had him extubated. I was like, you have to make him lucid because I have to have this conversation with him. And they made him lucid, and I said, look, you're dying. You're not getting better. Here's what we can do. You're going to go to sleep, and you're not going to wake up. And he said, okay. You know, and I did that because his wife couldn't do it. And then it was just a process of waiting and keeping my hands off the machine. A few years later, my cat got diagnosed with something really gruesome. And so for 5 months, I had syringes and narcotics in my house because I had to give him a shot 2 times a day for pain. And I didn't want it. And the reason that's interesting to me is because when I was 14, the thing I wanted most in life was to be a heroin addict. I had just so romanticized this in my head. I thought, this is what I really want. And now I got a derivative of morphine in my house, and I got a whole bunch of syringes. I can go to town if I want. Plus, I'm getting this stuff from the vet. They don't care. You know, and after 5 months, when the time was, the appropriate time, I called the guy and had him come to get my cat to the next place my cat needed to be, you know. And I didn't want to do that, but he did it. And I didn't, you know, and then I had a large bottle of those drugs, and then it was just like spending the minutes drawing it out and shooting it down the sink. And it was like, okay, I want to be here. I want to be with you. I don't want to go any way anymore. I don't know what God is. I have a lot of ideas. I have no proof. I have no facts. We talk about this God-sized hole that, you know, my friend Caroline says she tries to throw shoes in there, and that works sometimes. And I'm not the kind of girl to wear a pair of red slingbacks or anything. So, but what I've come to believe, and this program for me is a lot about coming to believe. I've come to believe in the last 18 months is that this is a Lisa Pinkham-sized hole. I'm the only one that wasn't here. I am the one that ran away. I mean, yeah, my parents weren't there. They didn't do a great job. But at a certain point, I wasn't under my parents' wing. And I was still running. I was the one that didn't show up. I was the one that tried to go away as many ways as possible. So now that I'm here, I like me. And I don't want to put anything in between me and me. It's like, I want to show up for me in a way that I've never been able to before, and it's made my life unfold like this beautiful flower. I thought life was going to be lonely forever, and then I'd just die, and it would be like going to sleep, right? Then I wouldn't be so tired anymore because I'd get a good night's sleep, and I wouldn't have to wake up, like what I did with my dad, what I did with my cat. And I don't feel that way about life anymore. I'm very excited to be on the planet and to see what comes next. And I have finally embraced the fact that I am a let it happen person in a make it happen world. And there's great relief in that. That's good, because like I'm done. So thank you all for listening.
I didn't mean to cut her off. 3 minutes short. Anyway, okay. That's it. We've had 3 lovely speakers, and let's thank them. Tapes. Yeah. And don't forget, if you wanted to hear it again, there will be tapes upstairs. Okay, let's circle up. Can we kind of make a circle in this room and do the Serenity Prayer together?
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.